All right, we're live right now. We're going to go to the cloud also, record to the cloud. So that way there'll be two recordings at once. All right, shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug with the Waking by Yahuwah Fellowship Group. I'm with my brother Jeff and sister Zakiah, my sister Marnie, our sister Josie, our sister Sadia, our sister Sally, our sister River, and our brother Dennis. So today we're going to be doing a study called "Are is it lawful to have tattoos?" So mainly, is it lawful? Is it scriptural to do this? And usually this topic came about recently as a request from members in our own fellowship because we wanted to really just get down to the nitty gritty, whether it's right to do or not. Because there's so many different confusing opinions about this topic, even in the Messianic Hebrew roots movement, unfortunately. So we're gonna start. I think we'll start by going to Leviticus 19:28. The unfortunate part, I think, why there seems to be why many would say that there's a loophole for this is because it seems like it's only talking about for the dead. But again, we're gonna really see if that's true here. So let's see here. Go to Leviticus 19:28. I'll be using the Apostolic Bible Polyglot here. So here we go. It says, "And you shall not make cuts for a dead soul on your body, and letter marks you shall not make upon you. I am Yahuwah your Elohim." So if I just look at this at face value, this verse here, this is basically saying the context of the cuts obviously would be for the dead. I mean, that's pretty much self-explanatory, even without dead soul there. I think anyone that knows about like the emo culture and stuff like that, like I remember going to school with, people that were kind of gothic and emo. They would cut themselves and they would always be depressed. It was always tied to a spiritual matter. So I would always interpret that even without it saying for a dead soul that's what it's referring to in that context. And then it talks about letter marks you shall not make upon you. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. So right here, it seems like it's separating it in the text. It's talking about two different contexts. That's the way I read it. To be safe, I would interpret it as, yeah, you don't get letter marks or tattoo marks on yourselves for the dead. Obviously, we wouldn't want to do that because that would be a pagan custom of mourning for the dead. And just in general, you don't get letter marks on yourselves. And we're going to go into some historical reasons why I believe it's in general we're not supposed to do that at all, not just for the dead. But just looking at the word letter, okay, in this verse here where it says letter marks, G1121, Thayer's Greek lexicon, gramma. So this is actually talking about letters, like writing. Any writing, a document or record, a note of hand, bill, bond, account, written acknowledgement of a debt, letter, an epistle, like Paul had epistles. Okay, so that would be referring to scripture. The sacred writings of the Tanakh, Old Testament. So that's one of the definitions of this word. So this actually could be telling us even literally that he doesn't even want us having his Torah printed physically on our skin. He doesn't want that. So I would be very cautious not to do that either. I've had a friend before I got into this Torah movement, an old Russian friend of mine that I used to hang out with a lot. He, from his past, he had I think it was Isaiah 54:17, on his chest, and he thought it was okay to do at the time, not knowing, and I just, I was witnessing to him basically and telling him, either way, it's wrong for us to get, whether it's scripture, doesn't really matter what type of mark we get. The point of the matter is Yahuwah doesn't want us to do that to ourselves. I'm sorry, guys. People keep calling me on the Sabbath. My goodness. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to try to put my phone on mute here. Sorry about that. Stupid thing. Just bear with me, guys, for a second. I just want to mute my phone so it doesn't constantly do that. All right. So, almost there. Just need to mute both of them here. All right. Okay, so we're going to continue here. I'm going to go first to Encyclopedia Britannica, I think. We'll go to that historical source here. And let's see here. Okay, so Encyclopedia Britannica.com. All right. Okay, and then we're going to look at. Okay, so we're going to look at tattoos. Okay. So let's see. Here we go. So we're looking at the history basically here. Okay, so according to Encyclopedia Britannica, which I pretty much trust, they're a very decent, secular, non-biased, worldly resource here. Says tattoo, permanent mark or design made on the body by the introduction of pigment through ruptures in the skin. Sometimes the term is also loosely applied to the inducement of scars. Tattooing proper has been practiced in most parts of the world, though it is rare among the populations with the darkest skin color and absent from most of China. Now, that's interesting to note. That is pretty interesting. So let's think about it for a second. You know, the Middle East, right, is, you know, I would say that over there in Africa would be, you know, where you get a lot of the dark pigments, right? So that's kind of interesting. And absent from most of China, at least in recent centuries. Tattoo designs are thought by various peoples to provide. Yep, go ahead, Gibsons, go ahead.
Because the darker pigmented skin, the harder it is for the color to show up. So unless you use like a yellow or a white, and you have to have somebody that knows what they're doing with using those sorts of shades, it doesn't show up. That's why you see the darker skin people typically getting like black ink tattoos.
Yeah, because there's no point in having all those colorful tattoos.
Interesting. I never knew that. So that's interesting to note there. So it also says here, tattoo designs are thought by various peoples to provide magical protection against sickness or misfortune, or they serve to identify the wearer's rank, status, or membership in a group. Okay, and of course, since I'm not paying for anything, they're not going to allow me to read the rest of this, but I think we get the gist of it from that one sentence there, that it was thought by many different peoples or cultures to provide a magical protection. So again, to me, that's a red flag, just with magical protection being there. That almost screams occult to me. Paganism type of context to the reason people would tattoo in those type of cultures. So that's just one red flag that I have there. There's another source I would like to go to, and to show that the origin of this comes from Egypt, which we also have to be aware about not learning the statutes of Egypt and all that according to the Torah. So I'm going to look up on the Smithsonian. I think it's the Smithsonian.com if I'm not mistaken. So let's see. Tattoo origins, the Smithsonian. So if anyone's interested in to look more into this, I can give you guys the link when we upload this video. So I'll give you guys the links to this stuff. Let's see here. Okay, tattoos, ancient and mysterious history. Okay, so that kind of shows you this is supposed to be, I guess, a mummy from Egypt and stuff like that. So Humans have marked their bodies with tattoos for thousands of years. These permanent designs, sometimes plain, sometimes elaborate, always personal, have served as amulets, status symbols, decorations of love, signs of religious beliefs, adornments, and even forms of punishment. That's a little weird. Joanne Fletcher, research fellow in the Department of Archaeology at the University of York in Britain, describes the history of tattoos and their cultural significance to people around the world, from the famous Iceman, 5,200-year-old mummy, to today's Maori, whatever that is. In terms of tattoos on actual bodies, the earliest known examples were for a long time Egyptian and were present on several female mummies dated back to 2000 BC. But following the more recent discovery of the Iceman from the area of the Italian-Austrian border in 1991 and his tattoo patterns, this date has been pushed back by a further 1,000 years when he was carbon dated at around 5,200 years old. So to me, that's another red flag there. The fact that it seems to one of the earliest examples of tattooing goes all the way back to Egypt. So to me, that's something to be careful about, because Yahuwah, and we're going to go to the scripture here, in Leviticus 18 verse 3. Let's see here. Leviticus 18:3 says, "You shall not do according to the devices of Egypt in which you dwelled, and according to the devices of the land of Canaan in which I bring you, you shall not do, and you shall not walk in their ordinances." Go ahead, Gibbs. Go ahead.
Yeah, when we're speaking of these things, these ways, are we speaking of ways in general or ways of worship and custom, or are we, because like for instance, an example, the Egyptians used sleds and cattle to move big, heavy objects. That's something that they did. You know, we find evidence of sleds and ropes to pull sleds, right?
Yeah, that's something
I'm going. You see the line of thinking I'm taking, right?
I think that that
Yeah.
originated with them though.
Right, but
Yeah.
but
I was about
there's many customs of many people all around the world that aren't religious, like eating hamburgers. Eating a hamburger is an American thing. You know what I mean?
Germany.
Whether, no matter where it comes from, the point is it's not Israelite. So if we follow the line of thinking, then we're not to eat an invention of some other culture.
Yeah.
Right. Are we speaking of religious customs and ways and ordinances, or are we speaking of ways in general?
I would say anything that is a pagan thing that can be tied to religious stuff, but is also normally something that to me is questionable in its origin, that would go against Yahuwah's ways. I would say to stay away from when it's talking about the ways of Egypt. Like when I look at in my opinion, this is just my opinion here. When I look at tattoos, I don't separate the physical aspect of it from the spiritual aspect from it. It is directly connected to the spiritual aspect of it. Like, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, the purpose most people get tattoos in the ancient cultures was for magical protection. So to me, that's already a red flag. So I see where you're getting at, though. We need to tread lightly and not go crazy on. If, like, for example, Sister Zakaya, she asked me the other day about, the shaving the legs thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't see how that's evil, shaving, So I do think there's a fine line between something that's really an evil practice of the Egyptians versus something that is a normal practice that probably a lot of ancient cultures did, because not just the Egyptians shaved, Romans and probably other Gentile nations shaved. Yep, go ahead, guys.
I have just a random question popped in my mind. So you said that anytime that there is a cut made, it's a spiritual thing or something like that.
No, he was saying the old Baptist view of tattooing and opening something for a demon to enter, right? That's what you said earlier, right, when we started?
Okay, well, when I shave, I'm constantly cutting myself.
Right, but he didn't. Sorry, go ahead. Maybe you should answer to what you meant first before she.
Meant was the actual the more importantly, according to these historical sources, is that the purpose of getting tattoos, whether we do it or not, their purpose was for magical protection.
Right.
According to Encyclopedia Britannica, it was a spiritual thing. It wasn't separated from the spiritual. It was that's what they did. That's the purpose of why they got it.
It's their way.
Yeah. So
nowadays they're always having a reason behind. Oh, this means this. You know.
Well, Christmas means this. So there's always a reason.
Yeah. Like,
what I think she was referring to was what you had mentioned. You had brought it up when we first started, and I don't know if you were saying it or if you were saying that the Baptist was saying it. That anytime there's a cut, it's an opening for a demon.
Yeah, something like.
I didn't say get a cut. Hold on, let me clarify. I didn't say that. I pretty much said that I agree with the Baptist that the problem with the tattoo thing is when you're doing that to yourself, you're allowing a demon to possibly come in. I said hypothetically, you're allowing by the practice of tattooing itself is, and I've just noticed a pattern of it. People that like willfully keep getting tattoos, they get addicted to it. There's a demonic presence. That's what I meant by that. I didn't mean that every time your skin gets broken. So I just wanted to clarify that. I see a pattern when people are continuing to get tattoos. It's demonically influenced. There's some spiritual aspect to it. And I think possibly is because when you get tattoos, usually your skin is getting opened up, broken for demons to possibly come into you. And I just think there's something with that custom that the custom of the tattooing seems to be tied to demonic, entities and stuff like that. And that, yep, go ahead.
Like back in the day, you would have gotten a slave mark.
So you're saying not just the cutting, but the whole thing altogether.
The ritual of it.
Yeah, the actual ritual of it, getting a tattoo, like the whole thing. It's something I remember when I first got into Torah, something about it. I don't know if who it was telling me. Something about it, I shied away from it. And I remember when I was in Christianity, I would have actually gotten a cross on my arm. I was thinking about getting a cross on my arm before I got into Torah. When I got into Torah, before even reading Leviticus 19, in general, I didn't even know about Leviticus 19:28 when I first got into Torah. I just literally, there was something in my spirit that was like, don't do it. Don't. And I've always had a bad feeling about it in the past. And, when I found out about the Encyclopedia Britannica saying this, that was the purpose for most people getting them, was that they in their minds thought that doing this ritual is giving them protection, probably from the spirits. It's kind of like superstition. I see it as a action that you do that is protecting you from the demons. They actually probably think that they're getting protected from demons by having these marks on their body. It's kind of like how on birthdays, the satanic, celebration of, lighting the candles and all that comes from superstition, the birthday cakes and stuff like that. So I kind of look at the whole ritual, like you said, of tattoos is, to me, it's like the same thing as like, lighting a birthday cake. You're getting, it's the same spiritual idea behind that action. It's warding away evil spirits. Or, Halloween, what they would have to do, they would have to give candy and all that to ward off the demons, or they would have to dress as the demons to ward off the demons, So I kind of look at it as like the same purpose. Yep. Go ahead, Sister Zakaya.
Thing I notice is you have somebody, they could have a tattoo of a banana and they'll be like, oh, I got that as a reminder of my baby's favorite food, or some crazy random thing. They've always got a connection to something else as the reason behind why they got whatever they got.
Yeah.
What I've also heard is it's very addicting. Once you get one tattoo, you want another. There's some type of a emotional
Sis, you're breaking up.
You know. Oh shoot. Okay, so let me see. Let me come over here. Maybe that'll work. It's an addiction. It's an addiction, and it's something that makes you want to get more and more and more and more. So there's some type of a satanic connection, I think, because addictions to me belong to the enemy, not to us. You know, you get addicted to drugs, you get addicted to this, you get addicted to that, drinking, speed, whatever it is, it's self-afflicting. And it is about self. So anytime we get into some type of a something that takes over our mindset, something that we want to do because it gratifies us, you're bringing attention to yourself. There's a lot of things that it does. So that's why I've never had one. I didn't. All my girlfriends did. There was once upon a time, because I was in the gangster stuff. Everybody had to get a tattoo, and I said, no, I'm sorry. You gotta get all your tattoo you want to get. It. So that was just in me to be different. And I just, that I'm not putting anybody down, because there's some people, they just get them without even thinking. You're young, you're pressured, or you just think it's so cool. It's something because we weren't taught differently, maybe. I don't know.
Well,
but none of
for the Christian perspective, I wanted to add this. I know a lot of Christian artists that do it knowing what Leviticus 19:28 says, but they've been taught by their pastor the Torah is done away with. So they actually understand the context of this command, yet they do it willingly and they don't care because they look at it as the Old Testament's done away with. We don't obey the Old Testament. And I remember seeing Jeremy Camp. He's one of the famous guys. He was taught by his youth pastor. He admitted on his own social media, his youth pastor taught him, oh, you don't need to worry about that. That's Old Testament stuff. You don't need to worry about that. So you got guys like Jeremy Camp, worship leaders, worship artists, willfully tattooing their whole sleeves and, all tattooed up. And, what's another artist I used to listen to, Christian rock. I'm trying to remember the Ashes Remain, and I really liked their stuff. Yeah, I really liked their stuff, but when I started seeing them, they're still getting tattoos after being worship leaders and, being youth pastors, and they know better. They're still doing it because they, in their mind, well, it's Old Testament stuff. It's for the Jews, not for us. So there's other mindsets to this with this topic. There's other mindsets where people know what it says. There's certain people out there that know what it says. They know what the Bible says, but this doctrine of, it's only for the Jews. The Old Testament's only for the Jews. That's part of the problem. And that's what a lot of people are raised with. A lot of Christians are raised with. Lecrae is another guy, a Christian rapper. He talked about how, we don't have to worry about that old, that's Old Testament stuff, So that's one of the major issues we're dealing with today, is the fact that that's been taught, that not just this topic, but the Sabbath, everything in the Torah, it's, Christians are taught, that doesn't apply to me. I'm a Gentile, I'm a goyim. I don't need to worry about that. So that's what we're really dealing with for the majority of people that are being taught that it's okay. It's usually, from what I've noticed, it usually has a lot to do with the Christian leaders just telling them they don't need to worry about the Torah. From what I've seen, that's just observation from what I've seen. But anyway, so let me see here. We just did Leviticus 18:3, right? So I think we all agree here the context of Leviticus 18:3 is talking about specific customs that are tied to either pagan ways or would be tied into things that are just evil customs that we're not supposed to do. That's what I would interpret as Leviticus 18:3, which I believe tattoos line up with that. because there is a dark spiritual aspect to it, to that ritual. I truly believe there is. Um, Leviticus 23 is the next one. Leviticus 20 verse 3, which Yahuwah reiterates this 2 chapters later. Not to follow their ordinances and all that, which if you research enough, you'll find out what's pretty interesting is a lot of what Egypt was doing back then was kind of like some of the stuff they were doing was handed down by the angels in Genesis 6. And if you read the book of Enoch, in the pre-flood world, there was a lot of detestable customs being taught to mankind, a lot of weird stuff like alchemy and so on. So it's very possible that the fallen angels even could have taught them this particular act, this particular ritual. So Leviticus 20 verse 3 says, I will set up my face against that man and will cut him off from his people because he has given of his seed to Molech and to defile my set apart place and profane the name of them that are set apart to me. And, I think we tend to even, when Paul talks about, we are a dwelling place of the set apart spirit. So we also need to be careful too, not just tattoos, but with drugs and everything, to be careful not to defile, a dwelling place for the set apart spirit to dwell in. When I think about tattoos, I think about would the Father want to dwell in something that is, for a lack of better word, graffiti all over our skin? Would I want, if I was Yahuwah, would I want to dwell in a type of sanctuary that has all that on it? That's just something when I look at this verse, that's something I think about, even though I understand it's talking about making the children pass fire to Molech, but I think in a more general sense, it's also talking about to not defile his set apart place also in this verse. So, and to not profane the name of them that are set apart to me. So do not profane the name of Yasharal by doing such customs. So that's how I interpret that verse. I don't think it's only just talking about Molech. I think it's talking about any type of detestable customs of the heathen. So right here we see this problem today with this particular action. It seems like there were similar customs that they were having a problem with. Yep, go ahead, brother Jeff.
Right, it's Joshua. They're over there.
I just wanted to just backtrack real quick. It's also a form of self-worship, not just tattoos, but the way that people dress, the cars that they drive, everything. It all goes down to portraying your image. Look at me. When it's not about us. It's about portraying Yahuwah's image. And allowing the world to see Him.
Yeah.
Right. And then one further, it says we're supposed to let our righteousness, the garments that we wear is our righteousness. That tells who we are, not our skin,
Yeah.
So the light that we emit, the light that we let shine is supposed to represent who we are, not the pictures on our skin. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But also Paul says avoid even the appearance of evil. So I wouldn't want what I wear to appear like evil. Like for example, I think this idea in Christianity, they teach that he doesn't judge from the appearance. I think they take that out of context. I do think we need to be very careful, like Brother Joshua said, how we dress. I do think that there is a physical aspect. I understand the whole righteous deeds and everything is that is our appearance, but also we need to be worried about how we dress too and what we're promoting, what we're wearing. Like, I don't think it's viable for a brother or sister to wear an AC/DC shirt. I don't think it's viable for someone to wear an Iron Maiden shirt or something like that. So I think we got to be careful with a fine line with that it does. I think that it does matter somewhat on the outside how we portray ourselves. I do think Yahuwah wants us to be separate and not for us not to promote stuff that's evil. So I think there's like a fine line between, I understand in the book of, I think it's Samuel, it's usually quoted, he doesn't judge by the outside, he doesn't judge by the appearance, but I think for there not to be a contradiction with that and what Paul says to avoid the appearance of evil, I think we still need to be very careful about, our somewhat of our outer appearance, so we're not promoting anything that would be against Yahuwah. And so that's all I wanted to add about that. But I agree. We need to be more focused on, obeying the Father, and our righteous deeds are our clothing. So I definitely get what you're saying, Brother Jeff, and I agree. But I also think we can't just put aside physical appearance, that it doesn't matter, which the Christian church does a lot. They think it doesn't matter. You can wear whatever you want. So I just wanted to make a note of that we should be careful of what we're promoting, what type of clothing we're wearing, what type of symbols are on our clothing, because that's tied to spiritual things too.
Something that comes to mind is that also non-believers are looking at us. They're looking at what we're wearing. I had a situation at work when I was still in the lab where this one guy, he was in the Pentecostal church. He was part-time pastoring, and he wore very tight pants at work. And I witnessed a couple of women that I knew that noticed and said, he's supposed to be some kind of a leader in his church, but yet he comes to work in these really tight pants. So they're looking at what you're wearing. They're noticing, and if there's anything not in line with what they think, they're going to be very quick. And I just wanted to mention that because our appearances does matter to believers and non-believers.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. So yeah, I think all of us agree about the modesty thing. Yeah, that's the obvious part. The unobvious part is what you're wearing on your shirt and your pants, and brands, logos. That's mainly what I'm referring to. And just because I've seen it, I've been in the Christian church, I've seen the compromise. I've seen, I've heard stories of people on the worship team promoting secular artists on their clothing. So that's more of what I was like referring to, as far as like physical appearance goes. All right, so there's this next one. This is like a third witness here that this is something. Oh no, hold on a second. I don't think we went to 2 Kings yet. So we got 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 8. And so there seems to be a problem back in the days of David and his son Solomon, that the Israelites were starting to live like the heathen. They were starting to do detestable customs of the heathen. And it says, and walked in the statutes of the nations which Yahuwah cast out before the face of the children of Yasharal, and the kings of Yasharal, as many as did such things. So again, in context here, it's talking about they feared other mighty ones, which I personally believe there is something connected in general to this action, this topic we're talking about today. I think there is something connected to it where you're worshiping false mighty ones. Because even in our brothers and sisters out there that would disagree with what we're teaching right here, but they're actually getting stuff like the Star of Remphan. That's tied to worship. If you're getting the so-called Star of David on yourself, that's tied to worship. So that would actually be what 2 Kings 17:8 is even talking about. Okay. So Psalms 106 verse 35, but were mingled among the heathen and learned their works. So now we're going to go to Psalms 106:35. Let's see here. And okay. All right, hold on a second. We got some background noise. Let me just fix that. Okay, Psalms 106:35. And I guess we'll get some context right here. Let's see here. Let's start at verse 33 here. For they provoked his spirit, and he spoke unadvised, un, un, unadvisedly with his lips. They destroyed not the nations which Yahuwah told them to destroy. So now this is going back to Deuteronomy, Leviticus, Exodus. This is talking about when they were supposed to enter the land of Canaan. They did not destroy the nations which Yahuwah told them to destroy, but were mingled with the heathen and learned their works. So, and I think that's why there's a purpose for Leviticus 19:28, in my opinion, because he has to tell them of certain things you're not to copy. You're going to see certain things that these people do, and do not copy their works, because these are evil works that these heathen are doing. And he's trying to warn his peoples not to do it for their own good. Okay, so okay, I think a couple of our brothers and sisters are losing connection here. Yeah. Okay, so we're about at the end here. I'm going to read one more cross reference, Deuteronomy 18, verse 9. And that's pretty much it. And I'll end this portion of the study if no one else has anything to add after I read this last verse here. Okay. Abominable practices. Okay, it says, and when you shall have entered into the land which Yahuwah your Elohim has given you, you shall not learn to do according to the abominations of those nations. So what Yahuwah is saying is there are particular customs of the nations that Yahuwah loathes, hates. Abominable means like he cannot stand. And in my opinion, I believe Leviticus 19:28 would be one of those things he hates. So I just wanted to end with that. That was Deuteronomy 18, verse 9. And like I said before, anyone wants to study this for yourself, I'll leave. I have a link to all our studies we do on Google Docs. You can study it out for yourself. But that's the last scripture I really have for today. I'm going to give my brothers and sisters time to add anything, if there's anything they would like to add before we end this session of the recording. So I don't know if anyone here wants to add anything. Okay. Going once, twice. All right. Thank you for joining us today. We should be back on in the next couple of minutes. I'm going to see if we can try to fit in a continuation of our weekly Torah readings for our second study for today. Thank you for joining us. I pray that this message was a baraka to all that heard it and watched it, and I pray that that Yahuwah would lead you to make the right decision on this and on all the commandments of the Torah in general. And I pray, if anything else, that this shows you that his law is not done away with. This is something that this is a type of study for any Christians that might have been watching. I just pray that it would show you that, we are required to be keeping these commandments. These commandments are not done away with at the cross. So thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of your day, all of our brothers and sisters out there. Shalom. Shalom.
Shalom, shalom.